Welcome to Chatty Apps by Chatty Solutions. This brief presentation will give you a very good idea about the vision and concept of Chatty Apps and why it is the best way for companies to smartphone enable their SaaS or web applications. Before we get into Chatty Apps, a few words about why you should be interested in mobile enabling your applications. There are three obvious reasons that are worth repeating. First, smartphones are everywhere and their numbers are increasing rapidly. Gartner and other analysts predict that by 2013, only 3 years from now, the number of smartphones will exceed the number of personal computers. Millions of smartphone users want to access services on the web. Second, Web 2.0 is a reality today, and customers demand rich user interfaces. Third, software as a service is the fastest growing method of consuming software. Many software vendors are porting their applications to the web-based or SaaS model. These three factors have created the demand for thousands of web and SaaS apps to become mobile-enabled so that millions of smartphone users can easily use them. Smartphones are becoming the preferred client platform for applications because of their sheer number and convenience. Smartphones are great for presenting information. However, they have some major limitations when it comes to data entry and electronic forms, which are the staple of business and e-commerce applications. Smartphones have small displays. Rich user interfaces designed for desktops do not fit. The user has to scroll around the user interface to work with it, making it awkward and cumbersome. There are many different smartphones with different capabilities, sizes, and operating systems. It is not possible to design one user interface that will fit every device and is optimized for the device. The cost of customizing the user interface for each and every device is very high. Smartphone users are frequently on the move. They are often interrupted by loss of connection, the need to board a plane, a phone call, or some other distraction. They can only work in short bursts of time. If they're working with conventional web forms and applications, they run the risk of losing their work when interrupted. Smartphone users need a choice. When away from home or office, they prefer the convenience of smartphones. However, at home or in office, they prefer to use their laptops or desktop because of the larger screen, keyboard, and generally faster speed. When working with web applications, they do not want to be stuck using one device. Despite impressive improvement in the bandwidth of cellular networks, the speed at which smartphones can access the Internet is still considerably slower than DSL cable modems or the corporate network. When large user interfaces are downloaded to smartphones, the long wait results in poor user experience. Finally, the mobile web used by smartphones is different from the normal web. Smartphone users have to remember which website to visit, and companies have to develop and maintain two different sites. This contributes to higher cost as well as poor user experience. Chatty Apps enable you to create a new type of user interface for your web or SaaS application. We have a unique, new patented approach that is not only elegant but also addresses the limitations of smartphones. Before going into an example to show how Chatty Apps accomplish this, you should know that a Chatty app is a combination of 4 common concepts. First, Chatty Apps use the concept of chat or instant messaging. Chat occurs in short sessions spread over time. One chat message may not be meaningful by itself, but a whole series of chat messages can add up to a weighty conversation. The essence of chat is that it occurs in short, discontinuous bursts spread over time. Using this concept, a Chatty app breaks up a user interface into small bites which can be completed at different times in small discontinuous sessions. When working with a Chatty app, the user is chatting with a server instead of another user. Second, Chatty apps are made of popular user interface components that all users are familiar with, such as edit fields, radio buttons, checkboxes, etc. Third, chatty apps use a flowchart to control the sequence in which the chat occurs and provide structure to guide the dialogue along the logical path to complete the task. Lastly, chatty apps uses rules that are graphically defined by the developer of the chatty apps. Rules make the flow smart and guide the conversation along the correct path, so that it is completed as quickly as possible and all the necessary information is collected. For example, a rule may be used to decide if the user is an adult male versus an adult female. Once defined, the rule can control the sequence of the dialogue that is most appropriate for the gender and the age of the user. By this unique combination of chat, user interface components, flowcharts, and rules, Chatty Apps enables you to mobile enable your applications so that they behave like native apps on all popular smartphones. Let's look at an example of a Chatty app for iPhone users who also wish to work on their full-screen devices when it is convenient. This example demonstrates the many benefits of Chatty apps. This is a typical purchase order form that many organizations use. It will work very nicely on a full-screen device such as a laptop or a desktop. The chat flow for the full-screen device is very simple and consists of one step. When the step is invoked, the user is required to fill out the form, and that's it. However, using this form in an iPhone will be inconvenient and cumbersome because of the small display size. To support the iPhone, the application designer chunks the form into small chat bytes, as shown here, with each chat byte designed for relevancy of content as well as fit to the iPhone screen. Next, the designer makes a chat flow for the iPhone and assigns a chat byte to each step of the flow. In this example, we have a pretty sequential flow, but one can easily envision other applications where the flow will branch based on some criteria such as type of item purchased, method of payment, etc. This chat flow controls the sequence in which the chat bytes will be presented in the iPhone user. Let's see how this will work in action. John is at the airport and decides to order something using his iPhone while waiting for his flight. He points his iPhone browser to the URL of the purchase order form. The software downloads the first chat byte to his iPhone, which fits the iPhone nicely. John fills it out conveniently and then clicks Submit. The Chatty app server saves the data entered in the first chat byte, and then follows the flowchart and presents the next chat byte for John to complete. After he fills out the second byte, the data is again saved by the server. However, now John decides to board his flight to go home and stops working on the purchase order. When John reaches home that night, he decides to finish his purchase order, but wants to use his laptop instead of the iPhone. He points his laptop browser to the same URL. Chatty app recognizes that he is working with a full-screen device and downloads the full electronic form, showing all the data that John has earlier entered using the iPhone. John goes about completing the rest of the form. However, at the end he is unsure of the shipping address, so he stops and sends an email to the office manager to verify the shipping address. The next day, while John is waiting for lunch to be served, he gets an email with the correct shipping address. With access only to his iPhone, John points it to the same URL, and Chatty Solutions downloads the last chat byte to enter the shipping address. John fills it out and then submits, completing the purchase order. From this example, it is easy to see how Chatty apps address the limitations of smartphones. First, John was able to work easily from his iPhone. The size of the form and the user interface is optimized for each device. Second, John used a different device at home. Any number of smartphones or mobile devices could be used. Third, John was not forced to complete the form in one session. Instead, he could work with it whenever it was convenient. He also did not have to worry about losing data in case he inadvertently lost network connection. Fourth, John could use the device that most suited him at any given time. While at home, he could use his laptop with the large screen and plenty of speed and bandwidth. When he was out of home, he could use his iPhone, which has the benefit of portability. Fifth, John was working with small bytes when he was using the iPhone. This meant that the user interface downloads faster without having to load up the entire form. Speed correlates with good user experience. Lastly, John did not have to worry about 2 different websites and 2 different URLs for working with the iPhone versus working with his laptop. He always pointed his browser to the same URL. Now a quick look at how Chatty apps are developed. The Chatty App Studio is a 4th-generation hosted solution that enables you to graphically design cross-platform applications, like we just saw. It provides convenient tools and capabilities for each of the 5 logical steps for making a Chatty app to smartphone-enable your web or SaaS applications. First, you define the data that your applications need. You can drag and drop to make the data model, which is an XML schema, and without the complexity of XML. The Studio also provides a built-in formula editor that allows you to define formulas for mathematical and string manipulation functions on your data. Second, you use the Rules editor to graphically design rules using common logical expressions and operators. You can also embed rules within rules as shown here, allowing you to define complex rules. Next, you use the Actions editor to define actions that can be executed at various points in the application, such as when a form is invoked or when data is entered in a form control. Actions are of 2 types. Web service actions allow you to call any web service for seamless integration with your application. Script actions allow you to define a script graphically, which evaluates rules and take actions based on the result of this evaluation. Fourth, you define the flowchart unique for each of the devices you wish to support using the Flow editor. A flowchart is made via simple drag and drop and linking steps together. The flowchart governs the sequence in which the chat bytes will be presented in the smartphone. Each smartphone has its own flow and collection of chat bytes that go with the flow. Finally, you chunk the user interface into smaller chat bytes that fit the device that you are supporting. You can make one set of chat bytes for iPhone, another for Google Nexus One, and another for Windows Mobile, and support any number of devices that you want. The Studio shows you the template of the device you're working with and allows you to drag and drop the controls needed to make the user interface. Smaller chat bytes result in faster downloads to smartphones. Furthermore, the data entered at each chat byte is saved on the server to prevent loss of data in case of loss of connection or some other interruption. You are now ready to test and deploy your Chatty app. A quick word about the Chatty app architecture. Chatty app is a middleware that sits in the cloud. It interfaces with your application through SOA web services and with mobile and desktop devices via HTML. The Chatty App Studio and Chatty Apps Administrator are online applications that enable you to design and manage your Chatty apps. In conclusion, Chatty apps are ideal for mobilizing your web and SaaS applications. The user interface is optimized for the unique size of each smartphone. Multiple smartphones can be supported. Users can work whenever it is convenient for them to work in discontinuous sessions. Users can use the device that is most convenient for the moment. Chatty Apps is a 4th-generation online design environment that enables rapid mobilization of your web and SaaS applications. Thank you for taking the time to view this presentation. Please visit www.chattysolutions.com to learn more about how you can